and we can see here right now, Peter, it is going to be that golden prelude most likely. So hero augments on the horizon potentially as well to kind of open up some niche reroll lines. Let's see where we end up going.
Yeah, and further on to what you were saying there, I'm really excited to see if we do get any of our really specific lines coming out in force, as it does seem like, yes, as has been the case across the tournament so far, for the most part of players, they want to bring down the variability of the game. Golden Prelude, exactly as you say, we've got a little bit more predictability to play with.
Also, I will shout out Tidal for using this specific arena. It is my arena of choice as well. Real recognized, real, it is one of those old school ones. Back in the day when we had the damage being delayed, that was like
when you ran away from the damage.
This one was one of the ones where you could use this one to run away alongside some of the others from that same path back in the day. But just to see what we're getting on here, Peter, because two reroll lines kind of opening up on this initial observation from Tidal, and we saw him yesterday kind of being one of the players that was going down that reroll line alongside the likes of the Pilfer opening as well.
Well, I mean, let's open up the conversation a little bit, which to further what they were saying on the desk about the different kind of comps that can work well. Honey Monster, Cogmore, of course, we've got two pieces of here, had terrible stats. David was saying, because it's contested, are you of the same kind of mind as well?
Absolutely right. So a little bit of a secret here. I have lost 150 LP this season in 5 games of trying to play Cogmore. Just kind of saying, I'm no expert on this, but I'm an expert of what goes wrong when you play this competition.
You're an expert on what's been happening to our players in this tournament.
Yeah, and it's because it's so difficult to get this composition online when you're having your units cannibalized by the enemy team, right? It's like them holding that onto them, ensuring that there is no way for you to go. You're so reliant on those freestyle upgrades coming through here. And a very interesting tempo opener, potentially also opening up here for Cass. Look at this, right? Siobhan and Cassiopeia shot prompted against those, but he has the Eldritch online.
Of course, we know the school mascot is potentially going to be coming out in short order to make this an extremely strong start. Not going to be, in this case, of course, we'll be keeping our eyes out across the field for any particularly spicy ones.
Yeah, but two very interesting augment choices here, but goes directly for that all that shimmers here. Ooh. And we were talking about yesterday the lack of that Mogul's Mail being brought out, but this time around, it is going to be brought into the mix.
I know you've brought up before with your Mogul's Mail, if you can have that one frontline who can stay alive forever, then it's amazingly good. I think your particular favorite was the Wukong there, your Wukong 3-star being able to stay up and keep that gold generating.
It's just the fact that it's so going to be very difficult in stage 2 to get it triggered because a lot of the frontline units will be relatively squishy when you don't have a belt to slam on there. But Mordecai, so in of his own right here, pretty solid unit to freeze. That's a little bit ahead of the power curve. Should be able to start farming some gold. But even then, I've had games where I've barely farmed any gold from this item on stage 2, and then I've had to farm 50, 60 gold over the course of a game. It is so powerful. And I'm just excited to see whether or not that's going to be something that Kess can steamroll into a strong opening here. But look at the other side of the field here from BCLF. Double itemization here on the front line, going for the full on-tempo game plan with the Dragon's Claw.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Maybe if there was a weak board for Kess to walk into, but we do get little blips on the left-hand side as to some of these, or all of the organs, in fact, that have been picked up early on. I know at breakfast we were discussing Title notoriously picked up the Metabolic Accelerator in day 1. Didn't go well for him. Kaito will do the same thing again for Japan. What's your read on this? So there are different ways of going about this, right? And a very big one to kind of keep in mind here is going to be the way that you're going to kind of look into things with, because again, it allows you the opportunity to sack for your teammates. You're going to be able to kind of tank the losses a little bit more effectively, because again, kind of like Tiny Titans here, is a shared HP pool all across the game. So with that continuous healing coming out here, you get to like around 10 extra HP per stage to work with in terms of like being able to kind of figure out where you want to go gameplay-wise. Yeah, well, hopefully it will work out better for Japan this time. There was kind of the interesting, I think you were saying, back before, you didn't actually want to see Japan changing what they were doing necessarily, just the circumstantial things around their play. So I can admire that, honestly, from ZETA Division, say, we've got a plan coming into this event, we've got a particular style we want to play, we know it's good, we just need the dice to fall where they need to. Interesting augment choices here as well on the side of Taro with that Transfiguration here. So we'll be going for a very charm-heavy game plan in the early game. Going to get as many components to kind of play this tempo off. It's kind of something I want to grab for a second here because it was a double component opener here, right? No free components, which means that any augments that will give you any of the extra components, extra combat power here in the early stages of the game will allow you to dictate the tempo of stage 2. All right, so Bab Zero with a pretty reasonably good thrown together ball for the time being, but oh Archer will be coming in here. You said this, we're talking coming into this one Archer player we're hoping to see perform very well, picking up the 2 healthy to make this board last longer, and also having the Ginsu so early on along with that Syndra. This feels like a very solid start.
Yeah, we saw yesterday people full on opening when they picked up the 2 healthy just to get themselves as set up as possible for this Syndra reroll line. Again, the Rage Blade now has become one of the critical items on the Syndra now. The scaling of her ability with those additional casts, putting extra power into her abilities all throughout the game, means that any combination of items that will just allow her to attack and cast as often as possible is going to be much more valuable than raw AP.
Well, yeah, you can see here in this round, even if it looks like it's not going to necessarily get the win against Babzera, who has a Syndra of his own, we have got to skin up, actually, at least doing a very good job of holding on with that extra HP, and Archer not just getting it in a lot of stacks, but actually building up a very solid early win streak.
It's worth noting here, so when you are playing 2 healthy, there's a little bit more synergy along the shapeshifter line as well, right? So you get extra HP to work with on those transformations as well. So super fun one to look at here as well. Opening carousel, there is a Syndra with a glove here, not the worst options of choice. Is Nops going to be a blocker here for the enemy team? Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case here, as we do see Kato going directly for that good old-fashioned Syndra on that carousel here. Get a brief overlook on what's going on here. Something to keep in mind as we do see the action unfold here. VCLF with that duplicator, we didn't talk too much about the start of the game, Peter, will be something to keep an eye out. Title the same as well.
Yeah, I want to kind of bring us out to the big picture as well. Notable, we've had several games where being able to put down a lot of domination early on has worked out extremely well. We're a couple of rounds away from potentially having Geekay Esports bring 2 players on win streaks through stage 2.
Yeah, that's going to be super interesting to see whether or not that is going to hold on, because they could tag into each other, and then you got to figure out who has the best chance of holding on to the win streak into one stage 3. And that's a very difficult one to kind of do, and something you can't really plan around here at this point of the stage. So it will be very interesting to see whether or not that's going to be the case. As if they do face up, it does seem. No matter they do not face up, I am missing here.
To be fair, there's a lot of more Kaisers going around these days.
Board, right, as well. That's kind of like I thought in Milan, I'm like, okay,
it's a spot the difference kind of situation here, absolutely. But so we might see them both getting stopped a little bit short. It looks like on the left-hand side, VCLF is completely fine this round. The Eldritch Brawl breaking out on the right-hand side. I think it might still be good enough. At least has been doing a lot of work. We've got some stacks on the Syndra. It's going to be tight towards the tail end. This would be huge if Syndra could just finish the job.
I think she managed to finish the job there. Yeah, she did for Archer, right? So,
oh boy.
I put a note here as well, right? So, right now it's a Geekay Savage in and around the standings as well. Here again, the fall streak not necessarily as relevant as it used to be in the past. You don't get the extra goal for it, but if VCLF and Archer are able to dodge each other here, I'm going to be very interested to see how they're going to invest into keeping their streaks alive.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. Geekay controlling both the winning streaks, both the loss streaks as well. That's a massive quantity of money coming in. And if we're all about that Syndra reroll, you have to get up to that kind of reroll state faster. It's going to be huge for the game.
Yeah, let's see here. Now they are going to dodge each other here, so Taro will be taking a beating from VCLF's board here. And again, this is kind of predictable, as I was talking about, with the slam of that Ionic Spark in the early game here, off the back of those early components being dropped here. And when you get a tempo item that's very catch-all, very flexible in a 2-component opener, and you can play for a win streak, identifying that spot and going for it is going to be incredibly powerful, because again, sure, the damage at this point in the game will not be as big as in the late stage of the game here, but you are still putting a ton of pressure on your opponents.
All right, well, great news for Brazilian fans. Geekay Esports control both of the win streaks. We'll see in a second if they control both the loss streaks as well. Babzera, yeah, I think it's not quite as clean for the loss streaks as it is for the win streaks, but ultimately, that's a massive amount of money into Brazilian pockets heading into stage 3, making it to PvE.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not we're going to see people start pulling on here. We saw someone with a Kog'Maw 2 more or less on the bench there, so it is going to be an interesting spot to kind of figure out how they're going to approach this here. Dobbs now looking towards a potential multi-striker line here as well with that spell play, something that we've spoken about at length here, really opening up an additional damage source for the likes of the Captain and the rest of the multi-strikers.
Yeah, well, talk to me a little bit about multi-strikers, because of course, we had a lot of stats to pull through from day 1. Of course, we'll have more stats when day 2 is done, but certainly the numbers didn't look great for multi-striker, and one that really stood out for me was the very high 8th rate for the composition.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you hit the Catherine free, you get the Catherine reroll itself going. It's absolutely powerful, one of the strongest compositions in the game. But if you don't hit that Catherine, you're then forced to transfer into the Callista as your main carry. Very often you can't find that 7 multi-striker vertical. You are going to struggle to stabilize and could find yourself in an 8th position because, again, when you're re-rolling heavily, you will end up like losing it. You can't even find that Catherine 2, which will make you stable with the correct itemization choices all throughout stage 3 and stage 4. You will not have the time to make the necessary adjustments on towards the likes of the Callista.
All right, well, it looks like we might be running into a little bit of a lost streaking from ZETA side of things. Taro will be one of those players who's been trying to put together a lost streak of his own. Does have pretty good items full of Syndra. We can see Syndra's everywhere. There was a kind of discussion coming up this morning of saying maybe we are going to be seeing games with 4 Syndra players being played just because the stats back up. That may well be the right thing to do. Yeah, and again, like, you just gotta have to accept the fact that we're gonna be seeing multiple people on Syndra, even maybe just in the early game for now, but even then, like, it is one of the best item holders to then go into the likes of the Karma composition that we haven't really spoken too much about just yet here. Free to Augment selection coming through now. This could be any free of the rarities, and it will be the silver ones here. So stuff like Pandora's Bench Speed are very powerful in this format here, because you can buy yourself extra time to get those free stars online. You can also roll randomly into the 2 costs of free, whatever your opponents are trying to hold as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and you can kind of pull out a power spike out of nowhere. Well, we'll see which silver augments come through across the field in a second. As you said, Pandora's Bench is exceptionally powerful. Worth noting, so the Brazilian team, they had the 4 streaks coming into stage 3. They now only have 2 of those. Japan managed to break a little bit of the hold. Look in the middle of the pack as well on the right-hand side. Title is starting to pick up a little bit of steam. We came into the tournament expecting him to be the big hitter for the Japanese side. Maybe this is the game that happens.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what happens. But with the fact you're on level 6 already, you're not going to be playing the Ashe Jax line you're talking about just a second ago here. But look, again, keep in mind here, Babsera could have just held on to the Synders, but now we'll be rerolling them instead, trying to get that Catherine, but going with a very AP heavy build here. And again, look at the economy on the side of Taro here. He's gone all the way down, just trying to make himself an absolute menace all throughout this stage 3 here, relying on that Mogul smell to get him back above the thresholds.
Yeah, pick up the augment to enhance the unit in the center of the board means that we were worried about the Mordecai not being able to stay up and generating gold. He's an absolute monster in the center of the field. As we do see Title picking up win number 4. It feels like the field is starting to shift here, Weta.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about something here, right? So yesterday, ZETA, they lost to Wolves. They were all using the same little legend. All the ZETA boys now on the good old-fashioned Sprite, Peter. So
it's a classic.
It definitely is one of the classics here, so I'm going to love to see that come into the mix now. Babsera was the player we're talking about that had that Cogmore 2 on the bench now. Has found himself a very early Cogmore 3 here, and that's going to be one of the successful criteria. He also has that Olaf here that can transform into a secondary carry, not going towards the Blaster line with that Tristana secondary carry, which makes the composition a little different. And I think that from most people here, speaking to Jubei, for example, right, really talking about how they prefer having the Jinx to fund the line and stuff.
Yeah, certainly. I do like that the Hunter's got a lot of different ways to go there. We see Dobbs on the other side with the beginning of the Castellan and reroll, just getting deleted immediately. The single target damage here from the Cogmore is pretty frightening.
Yeah, something we haven't spoken too much about here either, right, as we do see Unleash the Beast being picked up here on the side of Title, I believe, right? It is an interesting one for sure, because the main things about Castellan is you need to have some way to avoid having downtime. A lot of people use QSS, a lot of people use the Edge of Night here, but with the Sterix Gauge now providing that CC reduction for a bit of immunity even, right? Really strong, really powerful tool. It just means like you can kind of like go around and do other things with your items instead.
All right, as we come to our Stage 3 carousel, we will take stock of where we are, and we're looking at a very different situation now coming to the back half of Stage 3. We now see 3 ZETA Division members from being stuck in the middle of the pack. They've clawed their way up into the top 3 positions. What a change we were from the start of Stage 3.
Yeah, and I think that's just about like how you manage to navigate your position. We saw a very heavy investment from the ZETA Division side of things in towards this Stage 3. Because the most important stage in the game at the moment is going to be that Stage 4, and Stage 3 really lays the foundations here for that as well. Here we can see one of the biggest adaptations here as well with the charms now, being able to pick up 10 gold for the price of 6, I believe, with all of those missing connections coming in here. Quick, small adaptations here as well with the gold remover, getting the items onto the right unit as well.
So, okay, so we switched things across to an Akali carry, at least for the time being, and with the 2 Zergs, you said, going to be absolutely titanic to be able to hold in the middle of the board. We have now got a 3-item Kog'Maw on the other side, though. I just don't think at this point in the game, even with the Zergs, nothing stands in that Kog'Maw 3's way.
No, and that's the big deal here. Both on the senior division streaks being broken. Your title taking a loss. Sarah is by far the strongest player in the lobby right now. Has hit all of the stuff here. But also worth noting with Unleash the Beast now, it opens up that Akali's secondary carry to do so much more work. When she dives into the backline, she will no longer be CC'd and unable to move. So very interesting to see, especially with the combination of that Edge of Night as well. Doubles of ability as well with the Hand of Justice, just fighting for that longevity in the fights.
All right, so as we come to the end of stage 3, Title getting stopped in his tracks a little bit, but Kez managed to keep things on. Babsera from the Geekay side of things, keeping up a good head of steam. Taro, who we're checking in with now, you mentioned, of course, the ability to scale up by picking up some more charms as we go along. Still, we've had some good items on our Syndra for quite some time here, and with the Cassiopeia paired for more, again, single target damage to complement the multi-target of the Syndra.
Yeah, but most of the time people will be going for Karma as secondary carry in the competition. That Karma just goes into everything, Peter, right?
True.
Looking at this here as well now, Sarah should be more than fine here, especially with that Elf, even though that Elf Spawn will kind of be doing a ton of work to kind of remove the front line here of that Sarah, but as long as his Kog'Maw gets to ramp up with the Rage Blade, he should be more than fine.
So, I mean, again, we came in today not expecting very much from the Kog'Maw boards here. Is this jittery just because it's not being contested, we're seeing the full potential?
I think so for sure, right? Because again, you also hit very early on, you hit on free too, that's a little bit ahead of the curve as well, so you get to power up, you don't have to exceed all of your economy to like maintain a strong board as well. That's a big deal here. That stabilization here as well is super important. And the very interesting things to note as well is we do get this overlay up here, thank you to our production team. VCLF has not rolled a single time so far this game.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see. I mean, you can trust that with players like Taro and like Kez, who've spent over, we've been just going absolutely crazy on that one. I'm really interested to see, what you said, stage 4 being so important, how this one works out with both teams having members on heavy win streaks coming in. But only, again, Geekay controlling those loss streaks towards the bottom. You have the upgrades coming in. Of course, we'd love to reroll those 2-star units as well for the potential for a big win.
Yeah, really excited to see what is going to be happening here. What is the game plan for the likes of Dobbs here? A player, as we heard David talk about on the pre-show, the player that is seen as the ace here. Ooh. On this multi-striker line. We know he is contested, you can see right now in the picture here, and that is going to be that Akali free coming through on that side of the field here. So, going to be way harder for Dobbs, who's already struggling here. And this is one of the reasons why you see spots like this you're talking about before with the multi-strikers having a very high 8-frame. Spots like these can be very hard to navigate correctly.
Yeah, I suppose at least the good news with Dobbs is he's not overly invested in the Akali as of yet. In the same way we saw from the other side of the equation. See how Arjo has picked up the featherweights to rely for the Syndra, who is armed exclusively with cast acceleration to continue to be a massive menace.
Just looking at how this fight is going to unfold, we do see that on the topic we've seen 2 Rage Blades alongside a Nash's 2 for Cassia, just all out on attack speed. As soon as you're going to figure out, it's going to be a triple gold game as well to work with, people.
All right, well, it does mean we at least keep an even keel, but I do want to draw attention as these augments come in to Dobbs, I believe we'll be dropping in with in a second. These are indeed his augments. We know the Castle reroll is being tried, but he's on 23 HP right now, and he still hasn't got his primary carry online.
Now, that is a very big issue, but we see this time and time again. That is the risk that you take when you are playing into a relatively narrow reroll line, Peter. Sometimes you just don't hit, and especially when you're getting double contested. You see Dobbs now putting the Catalans back into the pool, put him on par with Pandora's bench as well, as he is going to start pushing up the table here, trying to find himself the Callistas of the world, the Camilles, etc.
All right, well, Dobbs hopefully can come back on a 10-loss streak right now. Very little room to work with. Babsera, his teammate, is still up there with a 6-win streak on the other side of things, but Kato, actually, say this is it actually is going to be the contestant. I'll apologize for what I said before. Not the Kog'Maw 3 on this side of things, but the Tristana we've seen be very popular as a complementary unit.
Yeah, they're playing slightly different boards as well, that's worth noting, and kind of also explains the reason why we didn't necessarily see a huge investment in Tristana on the other side of the field. But we just see how impactful that Cassidy free here is once it's found, not from a charm.
Yes, and I think I got bit misled on that one because of seeing all the Cassidy still left on the bench and assuming that wasn't the case. But hopefully things will be turning around as Title up at the top. We saw that big win streak coming in before. Slow down a little bit, but now picking up the pace here again. We know the Cassidy, of course, will be very hard to come by one way or the other, but we have got the enhanced multi-striker in here for a little bit more damage.
You do see now Cass has gone for the Vanguard line that provides the very powerful action here, giving you access to disruption of the Nami. One of the biggest reasons why this line becomes so popular is you get that very easy Eldritch Fletch into the composition where you don't have to use Elise, for example, as you see on the other side of the field. Terra right now is using Elise as a part of his Eldritch Fort as well.
I'm really intrigued now with Taro picking up the Quicksilver. I don't know if this was a direct response to potentially having a whole bunch of Nami waves coming into your backline.
So Taro slammed this Quicksilver very early on here. And it's one of the different things about this you can kind of do here, like itemization even, is that you need like some sort of attack speed. It doesn't scale as aggressively as something like a Rage will do, but that initial burst of attack speed from the Quicksilver allow you to get towards those Nash's Tooth casts very early on, much quicker, and then the Nash's Tooth casts can kind of start resizing themselves a little bit, so you don't necessarily need like to have the ramping attack speed from the Rage Blade.
All right, so again, let's take stock of everything and where we are. We know we're in Syndra Town. Everybody is going to be going through here and trying to get as many in as possible. So we know, the 3 stars are much harder, for at least for most of the people in the lobby to work with. So if you're one of these players saying, I've got a 2-star in here, is that good enough long term, or you needing to go into additional damage for your composition to really make it work?
It's going to be interesting to see as well here because, like, again, it is the biggest issue. But I want to highlight the title selection here just for a second because we saw him have that early duplicator. He's used that on the likes of the Akali, get the tempo, but also gone into that press the attack, Peter. Super powerful augmenter, really gives you that really big true damage single target burst.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, just having an extra way to push the power of your board, it's classically been the way to do TFT. As we see on the right-hand side, the alternate Cosmo comp coming together a little bit more strongly with our friends on the Tristana side. And we can see Babs are still very happy with how things are going. I think completely content just to have the 2-star Tristana there. It's just an appendage to the composition where Cogmore is everything.
It's also worth noting, right, Babsera's already level 8. He's just chilling up there. We've been able to go vertically, been able to start working towards capping out his composition here. Okay, Dobbs actually did manage to find that Captain free, I believe, unless he found the same charm again. So, very big spike here for Dobbs, but he's on a 1 loss streak for now. Should be able to kind of turn it around, unless it's there just sticks towards that Cassidy.
He's a monster! Once he gets stacked up, of course his skills will stack as well. This lifesteal is almost there, but it's not quite good enough. You can see Dobbs is leaning back. The disappointment on his face, he's not out, but he's not powerful enough to get the wins he needs. He's got no more lives left after this.
No, it's also worth noting here as well when you look at what Dobbs is doing, right, that Kato and Tara are like the next 2 people on the chopping block here for the likes of the ZETA Division squad here. So, because, again, there was a big issue for Dobbs was like he was so far behind in the HP race as well compared to the other players on the ZETA Division side of things, right? So they had so much more freedom to work with, so avoid that it just opens up so many more scenarios.
All right, we'll see. We'll keep our eye on the right side to see if... Oh no, in fact, we'll go there face-to-face to see if Dobbs actually up against Title, the member from ZETA Division, on the win streak. This is the worst-case scenario, but the reward will be big if the Cassidy can make it happen. Juicy Cassidy's not getting a lot of attention for a while, and he is chewing through that board. Akali is at 3-star, but her attention's divided. She's not doing enough to bring the Cassidy down.
Yeah, the Title here has made some moves with the Golden Remover here as well. Unsure whether he wanted to have the itemization this way around, but interesting to see as well. Again, just shows the power level of these spells. The combo chops coming through here, absolutely powerful, but a nice little upgrade here as well for the likes of Dobbs here. Gets this Hecarim 2 into the mix as well, so that is going to be absolutely critical here as well. Speaking of critical things here, Taro on a 7 loss streak right now, Peter. He is definitely in line to kind of go down and really look at what's going on, but it's worth noting as well that he's one off that ever so important Nunu free, which with that trick to spy class, Peter, would be 2 cards with a Nunu free in the front line.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the metabolic accelerator working out very much better than we've seen it here from before. I mean, it's on the lower end of HP, but as you said, would be a lot lower than without it. Getting the time he needs to work within the game, as I believe Dobbs will hold on for another round. Just to go back in time a little bit, particularly for Dobbs to survive while taking the win streak away from Title. That seems like such a big clarion call to Geekay to say they've still got a very good chance of coming out of this, I want to say, laughably early game with the advantage.
Yeah, so the big front upgrade here being found, we talked about before right now. Big item decisions here as well for Arctor. Had the opportunity to pick up a spatula as well, but knows number one's here really gonna take his competition over the line. So get that temporary frontline item. Luckily he's not traveling as well, so was able to pick that up just in time.
All right, Taro, we'll see if you've got what it takes to go face to face with the Cassin in 3. He's an absolute monster backed up by the red buff on the Callista. This time we've got the Cassiopeia in the mix. She's doing a lot of single target damage. He's focus firing him, following him around the board. But now Cassin is coming for his revenge. And this means Dobbs should be able to hold on. Syndra is not enough single target damage to take him down. Dobbs continues by a thread to stay in the game.
Yeah, Nico was baited in towards the enemy backline here, not protecting that Syndra at all, right? Just allowing that Cassin to walk freely here. We see Taro still on that loss streak, even though Kato on that loss streak here, even if he did find that upgrade to the frontline, Peter, so not necessarily strong enough right now, even with multiple freestyle frontliners. This Tristana is just not dishing out enough damage.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen the two parts of the equation here. The Kog'Maw absolutely delivering, the Tristana being a little bit of a disappointment here, and I wonder for Kato if there's going to be anything too much more that actually changes before his game seems like it could end up ending.
Yeah, and this one here as well now. A bit of a team battle between Arjaw as well as Dobbs, but on that 2 HP right now, Dobbs do seem kind of stable as well, so should be no issue to make a charge up the table here. This could throw a massive spanner in the works for the Zeta Division squad here. Keep in mind that EK, even in both of the games yesterday, did not go in a single time, and even though it does look like it could be very close here as well, disruption from the Nami. Deal out the damage here, that is going to be the elimination here. Very critical fight, turning Dobbs out of this game, Peter. That is a big deal.
Taro goes on the same round, but oh my gosh. I mean, you could see the heartbreak on Dobbs' face. There's no secret there. Taro actually getting out just ahead because of the HP totals means that Geekay take their first 8th place of the entire competition, as you said. Zeta Division, they've now got a small advantage, but we do notice Title and Kato, they are still in the bottom 4 right now, and Kato is only got 1 life left himself.
Yeah, and that is a big deal, but will be interesting to see whether or not he's going to be able to hold up here, because we are looking at a potential triple Zeta in the bot 4, Peter. And keep in mind that if there's a triple bot 4, there is no world in which the team can come back and grab the win. So, a very rough spot being potentially here as well. Thing as one of his teammates right now, no distinct shenanigans have been going on. The Nami wave indirectly to the backline here will mean that Kato will be taken out. Cass keeps moving on here. His strong tempo game plan has found him a 4-win streak now as well, but Babsera on the 5-win streak with the Kog'Maw line, just proving that much more powerful.
Oh boy, yeah, maybe if it had been Title in the opposition, it could have afforded to take the L there, but I mean, Kez on the win streak as well, but up above Arjo and Babsera, they are both win streak right now. You talked about the auto loss condition of having 3 players in the bottom 4. Right now, from Geekay, they seem to be on course for potentially having 2 players in the top 2, which of course is another way to guarantee a win.
Yeah, we can kind of see the adaptation here for the meta after what we spoke about earlier that they kind of struggle with on the Geekay side of things, right? Because they now have gone in towards really say, you know what, okay, we need to play a lot more than we did before, and I think that has been one of the biggest strengths of their game plan so far here. Title next in line, he's battling VCLF, but VCLF has that Mordekaiser free in the front line, Peter. Such a massive tank. Super difficult to get through here as well. So it is going to be a really big deal here for the global champion in Title.
I think he's going to have to rely very heavily on that Callista, though, if we end up with those big single targets. Of course, we saw before, Akali is not very good at keeping her attention on a single unit for any amount of time. We're going to be bringing out a whole bunch of belts, because I think Tile very aware he needs to bring himself out of his loss streak relatively soon.
But Akali in the backline, Peter, goes to the wrong way to start here, goes back onto the Kog'Maw, but he deals out the damage here very effectively. And that is going to be a heartbreaking loss in this fight for Title.
At least Tile keeps hold of the loss streak, but there isn't too much more ground to work with. It's not a horrific loss, and he's the only person with a major loss streak coming out as we check across to VCLF. The only player left from Geekay who's not streaking right now gets the win of his own, taking away Archor's win. streak.
But again, that doesn't matter right now. Arcjaw is more than happy to lose that fight because it means that VCLF is still more than 2 lives to work with right now, going into stage 6 here. So that is a massive round here. You're really showing the fine print of the 4v4 format.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly in day 2, we've got to consider as well, our players have had the night to consider what happened in day 1, to refine their strategy, to see what worked for other teams as well. So I think you're absolutely right. Day 2, of course, the days to come, we're going to see the quality of the 4v4 play keep going up.
Absolutely here. So now we are seeing the on the side of things here, Arcjaw title here on the bottom of the screen. You see, like, this is the fight that everyone is watching. Just looking at the actual little legends being posted on this board right now. But because there's much better items this time around here with that Rune Ants Hurricane.
All right, this is the one for everything. We have got the into the backside. She gets deleted. There's still a little bit of damage left. You can see that title just looking on him passively. Will take the elbow, barely survives. This is not looking good for ZETA Division at all. They're on the edge of the knife, and while they get a moment's respite coming to stage 6, title loss streak remains intact. It's a long way to go.
Yeah, and Babsari this time around giving up his win streak to VCLF. So VCLF again not taking any damage here. And there will come a time where the ZETA boys might have to take a little bit of a risk in terms of being able to go against each other here. And that's going to be an interesting one to follow. But again, this PvE round as well going to be so important here, because if Tyler's able to find that Castle free, find that Callista too, all of a sudden he might be back in the game.
There's also, we have Kez in the middle of that in 2nd place right now. Again, a stark reminder of how getting 1st place in the game very much cannot guarantee you the win. Kez is, certainly pulling more than his weight in the game. Overall, the board is looking very, very good. Really the key components for this, the more guys are in place from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, one more Castle and all that is needed for titles. You can see at in the little PIP here. So very important to note that that's something we're going to be looking at here. Cass now very focused here, has to figure out how much can he sacrifice of his own game plan. He's sitting with 74 gold. Peter does not want to make any investment right now, but does not get his teammate.
Oh boy, that's going to be a huge relief again. Reminder after reminder, if title drops at any point, well, at least at this point in the game, where it's seeming like it could be possible. No, Akali into the backline does take a big chunk. Callista is still up alive, still at the edge of knife. And the Crown Guard, Akali is barely staying up. She's on the absolute edge of title, down to just a Callista. The CC coming in. I don't think there's quite enough there. The dash is good. There's not a lot of damage on the other side, but no! A heartbreaker. ZETA Division, the rest of the game will be played out. You can see in the camera there for Geekay Esports, they know this one is done. They're up 1-0 in the series. You
can kind of see just the inner workings of the competition coming together the second that Castle and Free was found, just how much impact that could have here. But was struggling to find that ever so important Callista 2. Callista 2 again would have cleaned out that backline alongside the Akali with that spread of the Rend. But this time around, Peter, it's going to be a surprising victory in game number 1 for Geekay Esports.
Yeah, I don't think people were really rating their chances at all coming in. I mean, you look at the history, particularly from title side of things, and say, he is a player who's literally been the best in the world, and in a dominating fashion, winning his championship. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of echoes, I think, from day 1 from the division in terms of how these games are going.
Yeah, and again, we spoke about this as well just a little bit ago when we was having lunch with the Branching Out boys, that they were talking about how the fact that this Geekay sport was not putting enough emphasis onto Syndra. Well, they came back, they watched their VODs, and this time around, they have put on a huge emphasis on towards the Syndra, really showcasing just how powerful this unit is at the moment.
Well, with the game decided and really just the last bits and pieces to pull out here, we can start looking forward to game number 2. So, of course, we'll be hearing from the analyst desk after the series is done. But in terms of during the series here, since we've got this opportunity to do so, we saw a very, very contested 2-cost game here. In terms of implications for the series, Weta, where should we be looking from here?
It's hard to say, right? Because we had a very similar game plan for ZETA yesterday as well, where they did lose game number 1 in a very close fashion to Wolves. This game is a little bit more dominant for Geekay than the Wolves one was yesterday. But again, they came back game number 2, cleverly fought out game with a lot of very interesting decisions being made along the way. But this time around here, it does seem like They'll have their backs against the wall, but they know the scenario. They've been here before, they've been on the stage before. They know exactly how to handle the situation. No matter what, I think that this game number 2 here, after they get a short break, they'll go in with a fresh mind and say, you know what, it's a new game of TFT. We know what we're getting into. Absolutely incredible scenes to look out for.
And of course, it's worth noting that Geekay Esports did go 0-2 in their first series against Branching Out, so this will be their first victory of the entire competition.
I mean, it turns out all they needed to win a game was one of the players going 8th, you know? Like, they didn't go 8th in either of their matches yesterday. They didn't win any of them. Now, they took the 8th place, was able to grieve correctly, was able to send Tidal, Kato, and Tara in towards that ever-so-elusive bottom 4, securing the victory, so...
Is that the secret sauce, Weeter? Is that all it takes?
I mean, all it takes is, Peter, it's easy, you know? We have the game plan.
Just go 8th.
No, I mean, just send 3 players of the enemy team into the bottom 4. It should be easy, right?
I mean, it certainly worked here. Oh boy, well, I mean, calling back to the Wolves game, as they said before, it did look very different in terms of what their most effective strategy was. It wasn't the reroll, it was the 10 portal coming in, the big verticals that worked out really well for them. From my side of things, I'm kind of hoping we can get back to more emphasis on that style of play if ZETA Division are going to bring this to a 3rd game.
Yeah, definitely is going to be something we need to keep an eye out for, right? A lot of interesting augment choices being made this game that we didn't see a lot of yesterday, right? We didn't see only to beat a lot. We definitely did not see the Dragonclaw augment come out either as well, right? So, but also again, as I was talking about at the start of the game here, very good understanding of Geekay of how they have to approach stage 2, right? Low component opener, just picking up item-based offense, just running the tempo.
And of course, for anyone who's kind of coming into the the international scene, just a little history lesson about Brazil. If you go right back to the beginning into Galaxies and Slooper bringing, getting into 3rd place, bringing Brazil, TFT in general, I have to imagine that he's going to be watching here today and very much approving of what's happening in this game.
Yeah, Slooper was one of the OGs of the Brazilian space, right? Really had a fantastic presence there. And I want to have something else here as well. Even though they did overall lose game number 2 yesterday, Arcjor did win that game for them, right? So it does seem like Arcjor is going to be the quote-unquote the hero, the ace player, call what you like, for the likes of this Geekay squad. So maybe they might be trying to target him a little bit more in the game after this one, right? For ZETA Division. So a lot of interesting things to kind of keep an eye out for.
All right, 2 players left in the mix as we just run down the clock here on an already completed game. Kez looking to salvage a little bit of honor for ZETA Division by at least getting the win here in the game, but again, the stark reminder that it just doesn't matter if the rest of the team are unable to keep up with your pressure. Certainly the board we've got going on here is very good, and perhaps we're seeing a little taste of what could deal with this Syndra. From Kez's side, he seems like he's leapfrogged that kind of power level that's there for the Syndra with his board.
So we saw this from Kez yesterday as well. He was the player to bring up the 10 portal you're talking about. So it does seem like he's a critical player of getting to these high cap board states for the likes of the ZETA Division team. So a really interesting spot to kind of look out for here as well. And also worth noting, right, we saw ZETA do some really good stuff yesterday. They played Varus, for example, right? We saw Kato bring that out, even top 4 with it. Again, he wasn't supposed to be the ace player in that final game for them yesterday, but was the one that made him towards that top 4 against Wolves. So we're excited to see how they will be able to approach game 2 coming up.
I mean, what I love about this as well, we're talking about the different players getting the spotlight here. Of course, with all of our teams being in conflict with each other, they get to share the wisdom of the players amongst, well, especially while we're still in the 4v4 situation, there's a limited amount they can do while still playing their own game. But particularly, if we end up in a game 2 which is like this, where we haven't had it decided as of yet, you get the entire focused effort of both teams being poured into a single player.
That is definitely one of the biggest things about this format. Like, again, with the shared knowledge, the ability to play 4 games at once is such a critical part. You're talking about clear communication. So important here. So what could be the final fight of the game here will be showing out here. Again, Kez, strong individual performance from him yet again here. But it does seem like we should be going into game number 2 very shortly. But just looking at this as well here, just seeing the power level of this Seraph too, even on itemized, just raining down damage across the board. So something as well to keep in mind as we approach the other games. What do you need to play for when it comes to these caps?
All right, well, with the end of that game, we've known it for a while, but now we can make it official. Geekay Esports with their first game victory of the entire competition. They look chill as cucumbers there, because of course they've had time to process that they finally found their footing in the tournament.
Yeah, that is a big one for them as well. A massive confidence booster for this Brazilian squad. A team that so many people had their doubts about, Peter. And now they are the ones that are on the verge of sending home ZETA Division.
I mean, and that's the heartbreak that's going to be taking place across the day on our A and B streams. We've got the 3 eliminations on this stream. We've got 1 on the B stream as well. We will look where it all started out there. And it's ironic, you know, of course we saw during the game, we also during the replay there, the heartbreak of Dobbs going out in 8th place. But the fact they managed to actually come back from that as a squad makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is something that we need to keep in mind here. This is a squad competition. It doesn't matter if you have the potentially best player in the world and title on your team. Historically speaking, when the teamwork is just absolutely amazing, has been from Geekay Esports.
Yeah, looking through everything again, we can certainly see that, you know, KS did manage to keep his head above water and did ultimately get the win, but not the win that counted, the win overall as a team. Geekay, okay, there we go. We missed the smiles the first time round. This time it was gonna be for real. So, gentle friends, as we get ourselves ready for game number 2, the Dr. Suleiman Al Habib Showdown will continue after the break.
We're kicking off the Airstream with a high-pressure series here. Of course, our losers match. Neither of these teams want to exit the tournament here. They both have high hopes, high dreams, high aspirations. Let's start with GK. We've got Miguel here.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's always nice to play here in Saudi.
Yeah. It's hot. We're walking across. There's obviously the temperature's hot here and the stakes are high. It's going to be hot when you get into the server as well. You don't want to leave here. Come on.
No. Of course, I want to play more. I want to reach the final, so I can't lose this match.
Yeah. What do you make of ZETA Division?
What?
What do you make of your opponents here?
Oh, they're good. We already played with them in screens sometimes, but I think we are better.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
ZETA Division making their way here to the stage for a crucial battle against GK. You could argue it was a shock defeat yesterday, but feels like the mood in the camp is very confident. They don't expect to exit the tournament here at all. I'm just looking to see if I can get a brief word with Joe here, who's at the back. I know he doesn't want to speak to me, but we're going to get a few words with him. How are the team feeling? How's the energy in the roster right now?
Feeling confident, ready to fight.
What do you think went wrong yesterday?
Went wrong yesterday? Oh, it's just a bad day for us.
No, we're just right back in the kitchen ready to cook, right?
Yep, exactly.
How much does pride, regional pride, come into play here for these guys? I know that they're very passionate about representing Japan.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, Tyro told me just now that he is fighting this battle for Japan and the TFT community back there. So we do have the pride in there.
Absolutely, you can sense it. Guys, are we going to win?
Win.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
One more?
Yeah.
Yes is across the board. Back to you.
Welcome back to the Esports World Cup, presenting Teamfight Tactics. We are about to get into the second game of our first series here today. We are at Elimination Station, Weta, and ZETA Division there might be about to punch their ticket out of here.
Yeah, absolutely right. Again, great showcase here. Plenty on our way to another upset as you're pointing out here, right? So this Geekay squad, they have finally been able to really get locked in, really showcase that they have been able to adapt overnight. And now the question becomes, Peter, can ZETA be the ones that adapt over the course of a small break?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like there were so many disappointments there. I think from tactical side of things, we did see a little bit more, but certainly in this game, the contest did, on so many different angles from the Japanese squad did not work out. And I wonder, going into game 2, do you want to take the chance again that you come out on the wrong side of these rerolls with a weaker version of what your opposing team is playing?
I think you kind of just have to accept the fact you're going to be going towards those reroll competitions. They spike so much earlier in the game, which means you're going to be under so much more pressure. The 4-2 roll down will always be very, very wishy-washy when it comes to just your ability to hit those forecasts, even if your entire team are taking them out of the pool. And then again, even just the power level of a lot of the forecasts not named Karma right now is very dubious.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we saw towards the tail end of their Kez did manage to, find a way to cap out. Admittedly, with the Syndra of his own in the mix as well, but, kind of everybody had that, so it kind of goes without saying. But I think you're right, it's a risky proposition, but at this point, ZETA Division, they have to win the game, so I would love to be a fly on the wall in, that locker room and trying to figure out, do they try and play just standard Team TFT as best as possible, or do they go hyper risky knowing that it's all or nothing right now?
Well, we can figure that out a little bit by the selection of the portal here as well. That's going to be an interesting one to kind of keep our eyes peeled for.
And they're split.
It is a split decision, it seems like here. Golden Finale, Component Anvils, Champion Delivery. Champion Delivery is a little extra gold here, is something to keep in mind, but it is going to be a full-on split here as well, so very clear intentions for the likes of ZETA Division. They want that Golden Finale, but it is going to be the Champion Delivery coming through here for the likes of the Geekay Esports side of things here.
So I don't mind this at all from Geekay's side because, of course, they've got the game in hand already, so they can afford to play in a higher variance environment because, of course, we don't have the control over the Champion Delivery you might have in a Champion Conference, for instance. So there still is a possibility for things to go pretty wild, but I mean, if you take that chance here for Geekay Esports and the coin flips your way, you're done with the series, you carry on, ZETA Division are done.
Yeah, and that is what it's all to play for here as well. These early pairs will be so important here. Just able to set that tempo in stage 2, just have full control. The biggest example that we saw yesterday was in ZETA Division's Game 3 against Wolves Esports, where Wolves were just able to fully take control over the game and hunt down the ZETA players with those very strong early game pickups here. So, yet again, we see a Jace pair. We do see the Elise pair as well. So, a strong shapes opener on the cards here for likes of Dom. Should that be one he wants to go for?
Because of course we've talked about as the overall team strategy, just referring back to Dobbs' heartbreak from before, it doesn't seem like a player would necessarily made his peace with being, this is my role in the game to get knocked out slowly and do as much damage as possible. He seemed to be genuinely upset, so I think from Dobbs' side of things, I'm going to keep a close eye on him to see. It seems like he has it in his mind, he's going to be making a bigger contribution this time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of the thing as well is worth noting. When we were doing like our theory crafting going into this event, right, we were talking about how each player would have those like roles be dedicated at the start, but it has proven to be a much more fluid and flexible game plan coming through, Peter. But we do get those prismatics in the mix to start game number 2 here, and a bunch of really interesting choices on the side of Tara here. Do you go for the Incanter Crown? Do you have the best Syndra or Karma angle? Do you go for I am the carry now? Get that offensive golem into the mix. That is not going to be the choice of Augments here. So Radiant Relics also could open up some interesting lines with the Spear of Piranha potentially coming out the back of that.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about how powerful the verticals can be, certainly in Prismatic Town. We're much more likely to see them. I believe we've got 2 different players who've both got access to the Encounter Crown, and Taro will be taking the first of them. Archer on the other side of things going to be building out his board, so in a second we'll take the whole field in and see how it's laid out.
And we get to see build a bot, Peter, and often we don't see a ton of in the game, but in a format like this, build a bot can most of the time almost guarantee you a win streak in the early game. And again, there is not a ton of prismatic combat augments in the game at the moment, so any augment that can really give you that edge in those early game combat scenarios is so critical.
All right, so as we look around the field, we can see we've got Prismatic in there. I believe we had a Witchcraft crown coming in as well. We can see that on the other side of the field there from Bapzera. I'm really intrigued to see how our players approach this. Again, we've seen the verticals can be incredibly powerful. You know, for the Witchcraft side, to be able to get access to the more effective versions of Witchcraft a lot earlier.
Because you're playing a bunch of relatively middling units as well, right? To kind of get access to that like vertical Witchcraft angle, but getting access to potentially 6 and 8 much more effectively means that something like that Fiora will become even more dangerous. You can put the Witchcraft emblem on to Karma. Has been one of my favorite ways of playing it. Surprisingly, 4-cost flex spot that includes Karma, I know. But there's just so much power in those vertical Witchcrafts. When you get towards that 4, 6, and 8, there is just an absurd amount of power to be gained.
And I like what our observers are trying to show us there, that I believe both teams have been able to pick up the Mogul's Mail. We saw how incredibly powerful it was in the previous game. So as much as we got a champion delivery bringing extra gold, now both teams have the extra gold course we're seeing here. We can potentially proc several times across the fight. Not quite there for VCSF as of yet, but as you said, later on into the game, could be an absolute massive source of income.
You also will get that Gambler's Blade on the back side of things, so a strong attack speed item for the Syndra if that's the route you want to go down. So it just all kind of comes together, and that's absolutely one of those like nice adaptations, understanding what's at the top of the game at the moment.
So, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I find so interesting about the meta today, because while it's extremely narrow, and, you know, we've of course been talking about, you know, that it's definitely not going to be allowing for our flexible players to get the most out of the whole set as a, you know, because we're so early on in here. We are still seeing a lot of different approaches to maximizing what is successful at the moment, which of course is Syndra.
Yeah, and as well, also something I need to talk about here as well is that immovable object augment, Peter. One of the strongest augments in the game. Gets the increased radius, but also that 70% increased effect of that Randuin's Omen as well. It just frees up your positioning so much more than you normally would have to do around the Randuins.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it flashing on the board. That's an absolutely massive area effect. And you said, you know, looking forward to when you've got more units on the board, that's going to be a huge amount of value. We do see, though, on the left-hand side, that we've got ourselves a reroll going through. One thing which we haven't seen very much of is the Warrior reroll. Going around the Akali and the Nida, we might actually be, we're being teased with it at least a little bit here.
Yeah, but again, it's a Rage Bait Slam on the bench. We're seeing an Ashe and a Jax, Peter. They share a trait. What is that trait named?
Well, I mean, it's not Warrior. It's not, sorry, I forgot all traits, certainly on Multi-Striker. I'm pretty sure it's still Syndra.
It could still be, but again, with that prismatic ticket, you're going to be able to just roll much more aggressive than you normally would be able to, right? And that's where like your entire power of a prismatic augment comes through. So being able to get that Kassadin or Syndra online, depending on which route you're going to be going down with that Rage Blade. We saw over the course of yesterday, a lot of people actually kind of moving towards that Nash's Tooth being the better attack speed item for Kassadin as well. So it's also worth noting that Champion Delivery can also throw a massive spanner in the works for some players, because sometimes, you know, it's like you're playing Conference and some people just get what they need tailored to them, but sometimes you're just going to get random free gold. Here, for instance, right, getting that Hecarim in there, that's a multi-strike, a very strong one as well to boot. So very interesting one to work with.
And do remember, of course, this was the choice that Geekay made. They were the ones who populated this portal. They wanted the variability in the game. I think, if anything, I kind of admire it as a way to try and attack the mental of ZETA division here, of saying, you know, there are going to be things that happen in the game which could help pressure your mental. By seeing your opponent hitting the perfect unit, that puts pressure on you to say, I've got to make a game plan work in an uphill battle I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, super excited to see how this is going to unfold now. An early Morello slam on the side of Archdor, really just eating in towards that full-on win streak angle over the course stage 2. And if you do a fight stage 2 with the build-up up, when you have a strong frontliner in the Lilia, that is definitely something that's going to be horrific for your game plan. But also it's worth noting that Lilia free, not the strongest one cost, even with high horsepower being her hero augment, she still falls off.
We don't talk about that augment.
She still falls off very heavily, right? So there is a limited time on Archdor's dominance here. Again, there's something to keep in mind here. If he tags Kato, though, that is going to be very big for the economic game of the lobby here. Steel Division that would then go out without having a win streak going, but Cass does look like he's in a position to maintain a strong loss streak here.
Yeah, and he's the one leading in the loss streak ahead of VLCF. So, of course, if we call back to game number 1, in that instance, Geekay were controlling both win streaks and both loss streaks coming out of the initial stages. In this case, it's a lot more even in the game. So hopefully, a lot more even in the in the game overall.
Yeah, definitely something that we are going to be praying for here, right? It's worth noting that the one game the Steel Division they did win yesterday, they won on a tiebreaker of winning out the game. So they haven't had a dominant win just yet.
All right, as we come to the tail end of that, it's looking like everything's intact. So both teams keep hold of their win streaks. Both teams keep hold of their loss streaks. So again, as we go forward, again, continue the further injections of gold. I'm really curious to see how this goes. You mentioned the Gamblers play coming in with the Nashers, exactly as you called from before. VCLF should be able to bring this Syndra up to efficacy very quickly.
And then the big question here becomes, how deep does VCLF go on 3-2? Right? He has the means of regenerating the economy with the Gamblers plate, with the Mogul's mail, but it's also a big difference. Like, it's going to be a very big indicator for how he's going to be able to approach this game. Is he going to be going down the reroll route? Is he going to go for the Terror we saw last game? A lot of players going for the Syndra too, and then just pushing levels to kind of just fit out that board in that way and stuff.
Well, in terms of if we go back to the whole idea of these flexible team roles, do you have a preference in terms of between those kind of two angles? With the between the rerolls and going for the later game, in terms of what you can do for your team.
No, it really depends, because again, a part is just adapting your game plan, right? That's a big deal, just being able to adapt your game plan to what's happening around you. So that doesn't necessarily come down to what you can do for your team. It comes down to, and it gets around the 3-2 point here when people kind of figure out how doomed their spots are. And that is when you gotta make that decision, flip the switch, say, you know what, I'm gonna go into full-on denial mode from here on out. But right now, a very interesting spot being played from Taro, just stabilizing around this Vex 2 with the Vigar as the third mage alongside the Galio. And actually a frontline combination I thought we would see a lot more of this week. We haven't seen as much of it so far, but the Galio Vex core is so strong in the front line, but very often it needs to be tied together with that Nora. Nora being that 5 cost means he's a lot harder to hit normally, but it is an incredibly strong combination here. But already now, Peter, you look at how low that Lilia got at the point of this fight here. Once these 3-2 roll downs come into the mix, if Arcjor doesn't heavily invest, doesn't find a lot of other upgrades around this, that could be the end of the road for that win streak, Peter. But we are going to be going into Prismatic.
All right, Prismatic, and not a drop to drink. So first time around, a lot of our players were picking up their emblems and establishing their boards early on. This time they can go a little bit more out in field and perhaps start to really claim their path through the mid game. You can see here for VCLF, picking up the tiny but deadly. That's certainly an injection of extra power to try and make the most of this gold generation.
Yeah, finds that Syndra 2 on 30 gold, which means he will have a very effective way of not losing any attack speed on the Gambler's Blade, but also won't have to drop below an unrecoverable econ breakpoint.
All right, we're taking a look on the far side as well. The reroll's happening. It doesn't look like we've got a pretty decent multi-striker board coming in together, but again, I think you're exactly right. We'll keep our eyes on the overall field. Arcjor with a very time-limited approach up against Bapsira, who's not on a win streak of his own. It does seem like for the Geekay side of things, that they've got at least a good route for Arcjor to keep things going for now.
Yeah, it's also worth noting here when you look at the Bapsira side of things, right? Again, I was talking about the Kama being the end destination of this composition here. Blue buff Gunblade onto the Zoe already.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm really excited to see some of the few different approaches coming into this one, as Kato, the other win streaker, will find the opponent who in VCLF who's also not making a concerted effort to try and take his streak away. So as we head deeper into stage 3, all of our streaks, no, my apologies, nearly all of our streaks remain intact.
Yeah, but Kato has a Kama already, Peter. It's 3-2, 3-3, found a Kama, Morello already.
That's not allowed.
No, but it kind of explains why we are seeing these two players on a 100 streak here. And again, it's going to be a really big decider of the lobby tempo whenever Arcjor and Kato are going to be facing up against each other. And also, I want to kind of highlight some changes in the game perspective so far from last game. This time around, it's Kess and Tara at the bottom of the standings here. Tidal has a much stronger tempo-centric line to play for this time around.
All right, we've got our 2 win streakers against each other. Let's see if the time has come to see ZETA Division take control of the lobby. We did see from our little display at the bottom before, this board from Kato is worth just a little bit more, and we've got the variability of those sleeves gloves in the mix as well. The Karma has only got the Morellos for the time being, but it's a real slugfest in the middle here. Both teams barely giving an inch.
Yeah, and that is the big deal here now. This Lilia free buying so much time, but it does seem like that time has passed now. But the overtime coming through. It's Kalista versus Karma in the overtime situation. And the dust stacking up here means that ZETA's Kato will be the one to maintain the streak into this ever so important stage 3 carousel.
I think you called it really well. The movable objects in place for Kato from the beginning. Now up to level 7, of course, means those extra bodies, more defensive stats. But that was a real fight. I honestly admired the fact that we saw the more random-centered board, the early game-centered board, make it as close of a round as it did.
See Tidal right now trying to figure out which exact component he wants, what he needs to block off here. So it will be a chain vest left open here. And interestingly enough here, Kato went for the free cost rod here, was not confident in his ability to get to the Olaf. A Varus popping up here. He is currently playing a centered line around the Pyro stuff here, but it's going to be sold off for economy. And that's another aspect that we haven't really spoken too much about here, Peter. With the champion delivery coming in, these players will be able to kind of overextend their economy a little bit more, because if they get a unit off of the delivery that they cannot use, it's a very easy way to ensure that you reach those economic breakpoints.
Well, talk to me a little bit about this one, for champion delivery in the context of this re-roll meta, because the champion deliveries, they're keeping getting more expensive champions. They're not re-roll champions that are coming in for free. They can only really be sold rather than used.
Yeah, Peter, but I need to talk about something seriously here for a second. That's now it's Kalista 2 for Arcjor, so very unfortunate timing for him to lose his win streak in the fight just gone past, because had that not come down alongside those lucky gloves, right, this Kalista 2 would have been his one-way ticket to dominating all out of stage 3 into stage 4. But as you're talking about, to go back to your point.
Yes.
Yes, obviously, again, sometimes you can get some of those higher cost units that does fit onto your pawn. Like, again, if you're playing multi-strikers, you get access to a random Kalista maybe, right? I mean,
sure.
That makes sure it can be dangerous in case, and then you also just like want to have the gold to work with as well.
All right, well, Kato will keep things nice and toasty. A 9-round win streak. One more. And Kato will manage to maintain 2 full stages of undefeated domination. It does mean that everyone else's streaks have remained relatively minimal. VCLF keeping things alive for Geekay at the bottom with a 3-round loss streak. Kato, though, looking so incredibly good. The 50 gold, 51 gold even in bank, and a 9-round streak. I don't even think anybody's, at the point to really threaten to stop his streak.
No, but it does seem like we saw another huge spike here for the ZETA Division team, Peter. We saw a Kassadin free being found as well. So we have Kato on a 100 streak, one of his teammates now on that Kassadin free as well. So huge spikes all around here for this Japanese team as they make a charge for the second game.
And of course, ZETA Division, they must win this game or the key will be crushed and their journey for the Esports World Cup presenting Teamfight Tactics will be over. Right now, it's whatever happened between the games, they do seem to have reset. And perhaps, from what you're seeing so far, based on what we've seen in the previous games, Rita, are we seeing what we kind of hope to see? Them trying to stay to their style, just stay the course, or are you seeing more adjustments from the Japanese side?
They're just playing much better TFT than they were in Game 1. I think that is the key thing that we're looking at right now. Things are lining up much better for them this time around. Their Kassadin player hit on his reroll. We saw that go away in Game number 1. Very important deal when you have your reroll players that they need to be ensuring that they're going to be hitting to be able to kind of push the tempo and then start pushing levels, and then have to be on top of positioning and stuff like that here. It's also worth noting here that Kato was unable to maintain his win streak because he faced out against one of his teammates. That was just like too much HP to push with the Giant and Mighty, which is a 1-star Cinder and a 1-star Karma dishing out the damage.
Yes, no, I was so certain that Kato was going to be able to keep that streak going. I didn't even notice that one for a second there, but I mean, there we go. A second Karma just arrives on the doorstep like rather that. It seems like the stars were aligning here. Would it not be ironic indeed if it's going to be the delivery here that is the deliverance of ZETA Division?
And this time around, we now saw the likes of Tidal also hitting his 3 stars in that Cogmore reroll line with that Marksman's Toolbox as well. So that is now, we have Kato, who is in a very good spot to play out for the Karma line. Has gone to level 8 on 4-1, 44 gold really just chilling. Then you have two rebuild players on massive spikes here. There is just kind of showcase just like how much better this game has gone for them.
Well, we haven't seen a huge amount of Dobbs for a little while, but one of the interesting choices being picked up here very early on, the Preserver emblem coming through, of course. We knew this was going to be at least a somewhat emblem-centric lobby. We do know Warrior Preserver was one of those kind of sleeper compositions that did very well in the previous day, but Preserver's overall still very powerful, but not as popular by far.
No, but the issue is that you don't get a lot of power by having like a Preserver, like your entire prismatic being tied to a Preserver emblem. Obviously, right, like that's another thing as well. As we do enter the triple prismatic, so really big tempo. But Preservers are very often part of the very highest cap boards just due to the power of Morgana being such a powerful unit to cap out around. Rakan also one of the best frontliners, again having that duality of healing and damage coming through under his side of things as well. So no golden eggs at the Peter, even though I do think Kato would have been in a position to kind of pull it off, but I'm just going to go for the traditional, good old-fashioned new recruit here. Could you do the duplicator to get the counter 2 into the mix, now just play for the massive tempo, try to at least guarantee him like getting fading out to the top 4.
No, I'm very upset I didn't get to yell egg, egg, egg over and over again, but perhaps it will happen at some point during the competition. I think, yeah, it's very measured play, it's very deliberate play at this point, even with the confounding factor of the champion delivery sending in extra bits and pieces across the boards and the extra spikes that might entail. It feels like we're in a game where ZETA Division, even playing more variable play, playing in a more variable environment, it still feels very much under their control and that they're calmly proceeding through a second game that's so important for them.
Yeah, it's worth noting again, they did kind of have everything lining up for them. They didn't have a lot of really difficult positions to be in. Again, they could still all come back around here. Looking at the augments on the side of VCLF, right? Again, he has Giant Mighty, he has Tiny but Dilly, he has the continuous gold injection from the Mogul's Mail as well as the Gambler's Mail, right? So he's going to be able to find his upgrades if he's going to be able to roll for them, and then he will be a massive threat just due to the power level in the combination of Tiny but Deadly and Giant and Mighty.
All right, as we look across our players, we'll look for that look of consternation on their faces, but so far we can see Babzera, a very thoughtful look on his face. There's definitely a lot of planning coming into the later parts of Stage 4, and of course, Stage 5 to go. It's worth noting on the right-hand side as well, looking at the HP totals, we are starting to see some of the players dip down towards those lower numbers. Dobbs in particular, 8th in the first game, might happen the same way again.
Yeah, this time around, he's now on that 5 Preserver line here, but his only carry is that 2-star Syndra, and while she is very powerful, she only has the 2 items right now. No items on the Karma here to kind of help out with the damage dealing, so it is kind of just down to that at the moment here. The Witchcraft, obviously, again, very high cap line as well. That's kind of the lines that the Geekay boys were going for here with these emblems. So if they can get there, can get to those massive verticals, they will have a fantastic shot at capping out into perfection, but they need to get there in the first place.
Well, I mean, that's the first step for Dobbs, you just saw on screen, did get the round win. And, those Preserver rounds in particular, when you've got so many units that are on the very edge of getting eliminated, just healing themselves up with all the Preserver healing and things, it's very, very tight, as Dobbs will go onto the carousel, not as first pick, but will be a second Morgana to potentially find a very early Morgana too. Unfortunately, Babzera is there first.
Just looking at this thing as well, worth noting that Babzera does have access to a duplicator as well, so could also be a thing to keep in mind that he still hasn't used the one he got from the new recruit on free too. So a lot of spikes still in the waiting room here for the likes of this Geekay squad, but also worth noting, Peter, they have 3 people that are closer and closer to that chopping block at the start of Stage 5 if the current tempo keeps up the way it's been going so far.
And I always like to look on School 1 and see what would they need to do to turn that around. The players in 3rd place and 4th place, they need to surmount them to get out of the top, out of the bottom 4, title cares, both from ZETA Division, both on win streaks right now, looking really strong and keeping a lid on Geekay's ability to en masse climb that scoreboard.
So we've known here, Dobbs kind of doing some rolling here, trying to see if he could find anything else really helping out with stabilization here alongside that second spear of Shojin. But that is not going to be the case here. Instead, he's going to be facing up against his teammate, who is also going to be on that Syndra line.
All right, we'll see. I mean, the Preservers are very, very good. We've got, of course, their movable object coming in to help multiply up that effective health. Wukong is actually doing a very good job on the front line of staying up.
Big point. It's going to be Taro's spot. I got baited by the other little legend being there for a second.
Everywhere.
but again, it's worth noting, we kind of see the power of like how long they're able to stay up, even with like this one-star-ish front line. And you're seeing how much time and HP it buys here, as it is going to be Dobbs' board that take a chunk out of Taro, bringing him down in towards that bottom 4, bottom 8 fight, even if Apsera is able to kind of turn this loss streak around.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the HP in the bottom, Dobbs, VCLF, Taro, and, well, Apsera to a much greater extent in the lower barons right now. You're right, like, Taro really being thrown into the lion's den there. Apsera, rather than Dobbs, it seems, might be the first one who needs to really be worried. He's down to pretty much a single bad loss, sending him out.
Yeah, and looking at this side of things here as well for Cass as well, right? You're looking at the multiple freestyle upgrades, but again, that is what you need to do to cap out when you are playing something like that prismatic ticket here. It's a critical aspect of it here. We're going to see the 6 Witchcraft have come alive now for Apsera. That Fiora 2 ever so important, but only that singular gunblade to keep her alive and this dealing out damage here means that this counter 1 may or may not be able to dish out enough damage here, as we do have our first elimination of the game almost on the cards here. One more round, Peter, but most importantly, it is going to be that PvE round. The influx of gold, the influx of potentially the last few items could be enough for Apsera to find his way back in towards the top 6 even.
Yeah, I mean, it was one bad loss away, but at least it was almost the smallest loss it could have been. Keeps the loss streak, as you say, into PvE. Dobbs also, I believe, took a loss in the previous round, so we are starting to see the beginnings of materialization of one of those kind of worst-case scenarios for a team, getting the 2 players in the bottom 2 spots.
Also a very awkward position here as well for Arcjo, right? That support goal, one of the strongest augments in the game, but not a lot of flexibility when it comes to the positioning aspect of the combination of the Zeeks plus the Zephyr here. No option for the frontline Zephyr. You're going to be losing out so much damage on that Callista here. And again, it's a unit that we know a lot of the time is only using 2 items plus that Fairy Crown. So like the Lucky Gloves kind of does the same thing, but you're not going to get that ever so important rage rate every single time. So that's nothing to keep in mind here. The Count could be a good one to pick up here as well if there's anything specifically he wants to roll for. Fiora being one of them, it seems like.
All right, we'll keep an eye out longer term to check back in with Title. I mean, we're getting to see the unleashed form of the Tristana and the Cogwell being brought together. This time round, it's working tremendously better. I think thanks to that extra gold injection, we're talking about the ability to hit, the gold thresholds to get your reroll on much, much quicker, working very well.
And we saw a lot of Radiant Refractors yesterday as well, but this time around we're seeing it on an item we haven't seen a lot of here. It is going to be that Stone Plate here being the choice as well, just getting that healing in there, getting that massive survivability for the tank, buying time for those backliners we talked about in the previous game, Peter.
All right, focusing back on Apsera for a second, of course. His potential elimination is the front row seat, but it looks like for now, the Witchcraft board, 6 Witchcraft, as pointed out before, the Witchcraft emblem on the Karma means she's spreading that across the entire squad. This is not just a win, it's a crushing win against Taro.
Yeah, and again, now it looks like he might be in for that 8th fight here as well. 2 relatively recent big losses here, as the ZETA boys also have to dish out some damage to themselves now. But look at that bottom 5, Peter. That's a lot of blue right now. The Geekay boys not necessarily being in the race here to kind of charge for this game. But we will see here now what is going to be on offer here. A ton of gold on the side of Arcjaw here, going towards that ever so critical level 9. Ops that Preserver count, finds that Morgana as well.
I mean, that's an absolute massive difference, particularly when you've got some of these units. As you can see, re-rolling it with the Warmogs as well for a little bit extra frontline, but we will see Apsera, he needs to stay alive. He needs to be able to take the win off of his teammate Arcjo. But of course, Arcjo on a loss streak of his own, so he's not going to feel too bad about doing that.
But we did say he was on borrowed time with that build-up, but with the Lilia, right? That is his entire Prismatic Augment is a 3-star 1 cost. And again, it helped them stabilize in the early game, but as they've been able to kind of not really do a whole lot here in the mid game. But again, Arcjo the one that can tank this loss if Apsera still can. That means that we do have our first elimination, Peter. Taro going out in 8th here, which does open up some scenarios, but right now, again, keep in mind that in the bottom 4 alive in the moment in the game here, it is all the GK boys, but also we do have VCLF on that 4 win streak with a ton of gold in the back to work with.
Yeah, that's a ludicrous amount of money, especially when you look at the rest of the lobby and how much money they've been able to hold on to. So very good indeed. Of course, courtesy of a couple of gold-generating items in place since the beginning of the game. VCLF certainly seems to be set up as the hero of the Brazilian squad, as long as he can keep this up.
Yeah, and that's the big deal as well. Keep in mind, dude, you're looking at the HP totals right now. Kes is the only one that's within striking distance of the other GK players at the moment here. Both Tidal and Kato, top of the standings right now, have a ton of HP to work with.
Dobbs going to be, I think, given that win over from VCLF there to keep him alive, but it does feel so risky. You've now got Dobbs and Babzera on the single life each. Surely you can't keep them both alive for too much longer.
And that is just the fine line you have to dance on when it comes to this 4v4 format, Peter. It's all ever so important, those singular fights, singular ability casts even in this situation here for Kato that just flips all of this balances here in this format and now onto an ever so critical carousel.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to do the exact maths, but I believe that Kaito and Title each individually have got more health than the entirety of the Geekay Esports side put together. The sacrifices that have been made to keep the members alive have drained the HP from the higher performing players. I think they may have put too much effort into not going 8th.
Yeah, GK right now have a combined HP total of 20, I believe, right?
That's why I don't do maths.
I mean, with 7 plus 2 plus 2, that's 11.
Yep.
That's 9.
20. All right, well, there you go, better than I am. But either way around it, the maths do spell a whole lot of trouble for Geekay, and a third game seems almost inevitable, and they're going to run into each other, the players they've been desperately trying to keep alive. I admire the attempt here, but I just don't know if it was the right move to try and hold all of your cards like this.
Yeah, that's a big deal. We can kind of see one of the reasons why we're still struggling here, right? You do have the Millia too, but still lacking that ever so critical Syndra-free power spike here. And we'll be going up against this Kassadin, but look at how he's ramping around now into the backline. Goes the Akali as well.
Yeah, Dobbs, at least he's avoided the heartbreak of the 8th, but the Kassadin will not be perturbed, going straight into the center there, or into the center of the backline at least, ripping through, lapping around, and getting the solid win in. It looks like on the right-hand side we do see a bit of preservation, but Dobbs will be out of here. The only question is whether or not VCLF or Babzera will follow. It's just the one.
Babzera on a 4-win streak now as well, able to kind of turn this all around now. Kes in striking distance at 11 HP here. This is so close here, and it's like there are 5 players in the game right now, Peter, that can be eliminated. That is crazy to think about as well here on this side of things. The temporary Dragon's Claw for Babzera's frontline being one of his best choices on offer.
I know, of course, you've got a lot of competitive experience yourself. It does always feel dangerous when you get to the point where you think, I've got everything I need to win. The only thing I can do at this point, which is different from the direction I'm heading, is make a mistake and end up losing something you should have absolutely won.
Yeah, but the thing is, we have 4, but let's talk about positioning, matchups, how you're going to do these things here, who do you have, pools, all of that good stuff here. You can see a desperate plea also on the side of VCLF. Means he's going to be able to tank a loss here to Arcjaw and still ensure that they're not going to be going into elimination. But instead, he is going to win the fight here.
No!
Did not tank the fight fully, which means we are going to be seeing a critical elimination here on the GK side of things, Peter. That is a massive risk. And when you had the desperate plea, you had to stay alive for 10 seconds, so you can't fully sacrifice your entire board. And walking that balance and ensuring you don't get run over by the likes of Tidal, by the likes of Kato, is super, super important. Again, Peter, keep in mind, Kato and Tidal currently on 2 loss streaks, the 2 of them, right? There is an opening here for the GK squad. As long as Babzera doesn't go into that bottom 5, it's all to fight for here right now for GK.
All right, well, all the possibility stays alive. Of course, Babzera looking to try and avoid what happened to Kez in the previous game. You win out the lobby, but leave your team behind in the dust. Right now, ZETA Division occupy the top 3 spots. But you're right, the HP totals, particularly from Title and Kez, dropping down into a dangerous situation. We could be just a couple of rounds away from seeing maybe ZETA getting knocked out.
Yes, we do have access to the Ascended Charms now. We can see Kato here figuring out whether he wants to pick up the tower. Making an item decision here last second as well. Will be getting a ghost fight here, so doesn't have to make any sacrifice in terms of pure combat power here. A Dragon coming out though for Babsera could be ever so critical.
Yeah, going up against Kez, who's only got 11 HP of his own on the left-hand side of the screen. Keeping an eye on that Kassadin, who's chewing his way through the board. You can see the Fiora on the other side trying to do the same thing. The Kassadin is ramping up pretty well, but he's being left all on his lonesome. And it's looking like the Witchcraft board is going to rip through and make the elimination as well.
Yeah, that opens up everything here as 2 Senior Division players have.
No!
The desperate plea from Tidal, as we did see as well. It noticed, and then I saw the overlay, I was like, yeah, but that's a big thing as well here. Notice, like, Tidal is playing a very squishy reroll line right now that is not going to be challenging for the win overall. It looked ever so doomed for the Geekay squad, Peter, and now they are 2 fights away from beating Senior Division 2-0.
Oh my gosh, there is a 1 life on every single one of these 4 remaining players. The game has been totally reset at this point. You need the first place to win the lobby. That's the only thing that matters anymore. As Title goes up against Babsera, both against each other. We'll try and keep eyes on both sides of the thing. The Witchcraft board goes through him like a knife through butter. That's an elimination first off. On the other side, we have got the Syndra and the Karma board starting to build through. I think we're going to see 1 elimination apiece.
No, it's a double Senior elimination, Peter. Geekay Esports with the massive upset. Senior Division going out. That is a huge surprise, right? They lost to the Wolves Esports team yesterday. We did not expect that. Branching out, took out this GK squad 2-0 yesterday. This time around, they come back with a vengeance, taking down Senior Division 2-0. And look what it means to them.
That's absolutely amazing stuff. Geekay Esports, who didn't have a single win to their name before this series started, make a clean sweep here in the lower bracket to keep themselves alive. Let's look it through again. It all went so wrong so quickly for ZETA Division. Exactly as we were talking about, the win was in their hands and it slipped through their fingers.
And a very, very close game here, right? It was almost enough with these reroll lines to tempo it out. But in the end here, they were unable to send that third GK player into the bottom 4. Great resilience from the Brazilian players.
Of course, this is only the beginning of the journey for Geekay Esports through the lower bracket. Although it's the end of the journey for ZETA Division, I don't think anybody was expecting that coming into this series. Japanese fans, of course, the Japanese players on the team, they've got to be bitterly disappointed with how that one played out.
Absolutely right. Again, we heard from Tyler about how much it means to represent his country, his entire region, have them on his back. But this time around for the Senior Division boys, it was not enough in this 4v4 format.
That has got to be absolutely so devastating. Of course, from this point forward, while Geekay Esports, they've managed to hold on to life, they're still only going to have that 1 chance for the rest of the competition to try and get to the playoffs and make sure they stay alive. Deciders will be beckoning, but as we look through things again, I just wasn't ready for this series to be over.
Absolutely not here. I thought we were going to a game 3, Peter, but we are not going to be going into a game 3 here at all. It just shows the fine margins that we are balancing on in this format. And we can see even with the quote-unquote wasted desperate plea from the side of VCLF here as he knocked out Arctor into that bottom 4 here.
And I think a good reminder for all of us playing at home with TFT that you can make mistakes in the game and still come out with the ultimate win, because of course the 4v4 format will reward the teams that have the best strategic composure, the ability to play as a squad. Such a huge factor of what makes the team work, and getting the top 2 there with VCLF taking the crown as a #1 finisher on a spectacular series.
Really just a great way to showcase the different ins and outs here and just showing